Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Merry Christmas. You are welcome here, whatever your age or stage in life, whatever your gender, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, whatever your race, your ethnicity, whatever your religion or none, you are welcome in this place. There is a place for each of us to create this circle with one another tonight. As we gather on this night, we gather on these ancestral lands of the Papas Chase Nation who've made their home here for many generations. We gather in gratitude for the Cree people of this land, our Treaty 6 partners, the Métis people of this land, and we honor the culture, the language, the traditions, the spirituality of our Indigenous neighbors, and we seek to mend our wounded history with one another, with truth and with reconciliation, that we might build a more respectful future with one another. We come together this night to center in song and in story, to pray with one another, to reflect with one another on the state of our world. And so as we gather, these are words in which we center with one another. I'll offer the words that you find in the italic, and I invite you to respond with the words you find printed in bold. We come from a world of cold, hard facts. We come from a world of competition and consumption. We come from a world of busyness and anxiety. We come from the world of bleak headlines and cruel realities. We come to deepen our intention to be those who provide shelter and support, those who are seized by wonder and seek to create the world of peace and goodwill that is celebrated in the Christmas story. We sing with one another.
On this night, we honor the light that shines within us, among us, between us, all around us. Specifically on this night, as we light these Advent candles, we honor the light that burns for hope. Recognizing that without hope, Christmas may not come. Tonight, we're daring enough to imagine peace. We honor the light that burns for these possibilities of peace, recognizing that without the hope for peace, how can Christmas come? Tonight, we honor and celebrate joy in the gift of life, of family, of friends, of community, recognizing that joy as part of life is what brings Christmas to us. And also on this night, we honor the light that burns for love, for the teachers of radical love from wisdom teachers around the world, and inspired in the teachings and the life of Jesus of Nazareth. And then finally on this night, on this Christmas Eve, we celebrate the light that comes to us, that burns within us, the light that burns, radiating hope and peace, love and joy, outward from our hearts, from our spirits to all. Even when we are most deeply in darkness, even when we are most deeply afraid, we celebrate these lights as the lights of Christmas. This is a time that we call our time for all ages. It's a time that at this Christmas Eve gathering, we read a story. We read a story from children's literature that helps us to find the meaning of this night, and to help us do that, we need anyone who would like to come and sit on the carpet to come. And it's the time for all ages. You might listen from your chair, you might listen from the carpet. Anyone's welcome. This story with you. It is called Humphrey's First Christmas, and it's about a very funny camel named, you guessed it, Humphrey. It's written by Carol Heyer. Wonderfulest, sorry, I got that wrong. Let me start again. Beloved, most beauteous, and wonderfulest of all, that should be my name. They call me Humphrey. This I could bear if the worst thing of all had not happened. My dearest possession, my glorious carpet blanket, has been lost along the trail. Now I am never warm, and I'm suffering terribly. That is why I have set into motion a plan to replace my greatest of all treasures. He needs his blanket back. I carefully nudge my nose inside the caravan master's tent. This is followed closely by the chattering of my teeth. That's how I let the master know that I am most enormously cold. Success! He has not pushed me out, and I remain hopeful that a new blanket will soon be mine. 3 rich caravans have joined us, and there has been talk of kings, yet these kings bring me no joy. For they've tied 3 huge chests to my bare back. They are so heavy, I'm sure each must be filled with rocks. The other camels are wearing the finest blankets. They are all comfortable and warm. Look at them. Not one of them thinks about me, their cousin, in pain and misery because of the loss of my most precious carpet blanket. I cry out in sorrow. I weep. Today, I continue my plan to regain my treasured blanket. I add loud sniffling to the chattering of teeth, and I squeeze my entire body inside my master's tent. As I do so, out rolls my master, for the tent is exactly camel-sized. It is as I planned. As the master chases me away, he tosses me a new blanket. I have success. Once more, I'm covered with splendor and comfort. I'm filled with delight. If it were not for the heavy chests I'm forced to carry, I'd be the most happiest camel ever. Now, we have followed the stars for many long nights. Now, our caravan enters the town of Bethlehem. Its streets and inns are crowded with travelers. My master gives no thought to my tired feet and rumbling belly. Have to move on. At last we reach the end of our journey, but I am confused. There's no great palace. There's no rich oasis. There's no palms heavy with fruit. I see only a lowly stable with a family inside. These 3 kings I'm with rejoice, and they rush forward to bow before this young woman who cradles a baby. Finally, these heavy chests are taken from my back and placed before this tiny child. As each box is open, I see no rocks, only gold and frankincense and myrrh. In this land I have walked past many children, but I've never felt before the need to walk toward one. But all of a sudden, I kneel before this baby shivering in a manger. Watching him seems to make me happy. Seems to gladden me more than sweet water or fresh hay or even my wondrous new blanket. I look into the baby's eyes and I'm overwhelmed by love. I pull the treasure from my back and I lay my gift carefully upon this child. He smiles and my nose and whiskers tingle. I'm happy to my toes, and even without my blanket, I feel warm. Beloved, most beauteous and wonderfulest of all, really should be his name. But instead, they call him Jesus. I really love the end of this book because it talks about this funny camel, right? But what it says at the very end is my favorite part, because the camel who was shivering cold without his blanket finally got a blanket. But then he realized that when he feels love, when he experiences overflowing love, do you know what overflowing means? Like, what if your cup was overflowing? What would that mean? You've just got so much, it just comes out, right? Yeah, that's overflowing. And when Humphrey experienced overflowing love, it made him feel warm, it made him feel tingly, it made him feel cozy, even without his precious blanket. And I think that is the best part of this book for me, because I think that's what Christmas is. When we can experience love, when we can overflow with love, and that happens in lots of different ways. Let's think of some. Humphrey experienced it when he saw a baby. And seeing babies is like that. When we see a baby, we feel love for that baby. It's just so sweet. What's something else that can overflow us with love? Have you ever had someone close to you, someone in your family, someone you love, take your hand, hold your hand? Yeah, like that. When they take your hand and show you that they care for you, or they want to help you, that can feel like overflowing love. Are you getting, do you think there'll be any presents tomorrow? Maybe some presents? Tomorrow is Christmas. Thank you for reminding me. Tomorrow is Christmas. So that means that when we get to see someone open a present that we gave them and the look of surprise on their face, that can be overflowing love. So, Christmas is about receiving love and giving love and finding so many different ways to give it and to receive it and to just feel this overwhelming love with family, with friends. That is Christmas, when love is born again and again in everyone that experiences it. And that's what we hope, is that everyone can experience that love. And that's why we share it. And that's why we hope that it can overflow out of us, so that we can share it with everyone who needs it. Isn't that beautiful for Christmas? I hope that for each of you. And I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. And when you leave today, please don't forget to stop for a treat at the door. What do I mean? You'll have to wait and see. When you leave today, there might be a treat. So Merry Christmas. Let's go back to our... We remember the story that gives us this night as we share together a reading from Luke chapter 2. In those days, it so happened that a decree was issued by Emperor Augustus that a census would be taken of the whole imperial world. This first census was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. Everybody had to travel to their ancestral city to be counted in the census. So Joseph too went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the town of David called Bethlehem, because he was a descendant of David, to be counted in the census with Mary, to whom he was engaged. Mary was pregnant. It so happened while they were there that the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to a son, her firstborn. She wrapped him in strips of cloth and laid him in a feeding trough, because the traveler's shelter was no place for that. Now, in the same area, there were shepherds living outdoors. They were keeping watch over their sheep at night, when a messenger stood near them, and the glory of God shone around them, and they became terrified. But the messenger said to them, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy, which is to benefit the whole nation. Today in the city of David, a Savior was born to you, one who is anointed. And this will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a feeding trough." And suddenly there appeared with the messenger a whole host of angels, praising God, saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to all people." And so it happened that when the messengers left and returned, that the shepherds said to one another, "Come on, let's go to Bethlehem and see what has happened, the event that we've been told about." And so they hurried away and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a feeding trough. And when they saw it, they reported what they'd been told about this child. And everyone who listened was astonished at what the shepherds told them. And Mary took this all in and reflected upon it. This is one of the legends about the birth of Jesus of Nazareth passed down to us from writings late in the 1st century. Maybe find wisdom for us.
So, what is it about this night that tends to soften our edges, lengthen our patience, lower our defenses, deepen our hope, melt our hearts, moisten our eyes? What is it about this night that inspires such music and story, so much legend and myth, art and drama, that leads us to believe that anything just might be possible? There's something about that story of Christmas 1914 on the Western Front. For whatever mix of legend and fact it contains, it has the power to inspire our hope in the best of our humanity. As the story goes, 102 years ago, there was something about that night that was powerful enough to silence guns, to draw enemies out of their trenches to meet one another in no man's land and bury their dead side by side. Something that allowed soldiers to risk moving towards one another, to exchange gifts, sing carols, share food, play a game of soccer, to orchestrate an impromptu and an unauthorized Christmas truce. There was something about this night in 1914 that allowed those who had been ordered to kill one another to lower their guns and extend their hands, to show one another pictures of their families and wish for peace for each other, even in the midst of a brutal war. It was an act of peace that came from those at the bottom on the front, not from the brass at the top. It was spontaneous and subversive. It was against the will of those in power, and the risks were many, from being shot as an enemy or a traitor. It was a moment of defying war and making a brave gesture of peace. And there's something about that first century story we celebrate this night that, with whatever generous mix of myth and pinch of history it holds, it has the power to inspire our hope in the best of our humanity. And it has all the ingredients of any good archetypal story. A cast of villains that begins with no less than Caesar Augustus himself, the emperor, ordering a census in order to increase the tax burden and tighten control on the occupied people. And then, of course, there are those who do the emperor's bidding and carry out such orders, forcing citizens to be displaced from their homes and undertake perilous journeys to their ancestral towns. And then there's always, in any good story, those unsuspecting heroes, like the shabby sheep keepers who overcome their fear and follow their hearts to welcome the birth of a child. And good-hearted, anxious, caring parents who find shelter in an unlikely place, who must have been helped to bring their child into the world by those the story leaves us room to imagine. Other displaced persons also having to journey to their ancestral home. Generous Bethlehem residents, a midwife or two, an innkeeper who was prepared to offer the space of his stable, maybe a soft-hearted Roman soldier who defied orders and helped the poor find shelter. The possibilities of an inevitable cast of heroes are limited only by our imagination. There's something about this night that causes even the most sophisticated of us to dig old bathrobes out of our closets and tie tea-towels on our heads and take our place in this story. And then for the best dressed among us, to present those jewel-studded empty boxes wrapped in tinfoil to a doll lying on a stack of hay. What is it about this night that moves us to reenact a story that never seems to get worn out, that lets us believe in ourselves again, to know the best of our truest and highest humanity and to see the best in one another? I wonder if we keep coming back to this story because it connects us with what matters most to us in our journey of becoming human. It's a story about the mystical in the wandering of stars and angelic announcements in dreams that give people direction. It's a story that commits the mystical union of the natural world and the animal world and the coming together of all manner of humanity in one of life's most vulnerable moments, the moment of giving birth. And in the blending of the two birth stories we have from our tradition, from Matthew and from Luke, we assemble this amazing cast of humanity that crosses the boundaries of class and culture, race and economics, bringing landless shepherds together with esoteric and wealthy strangers, and then the working poor in a carpenter and his wife who come from a distant village. There are these first century lives the story brings together that would never intersect one another other than in the world of the story. And we come to this night again and again to remember how it is we want to trust the stars, how it is we want to trust the unseen and the inexplicable, how we want to believe there is more than we can see and hear and know, and that we're intimately related to the sky and the sheep and the stranger, and that we want to remind each other that love trumps hatred, That it's not the warring or the amassing of weapons, but it's nonviolence that brings peace. That the emperor and the kings, the Augustuses and the Herods and the rulers and their lackeys don't speak for us, and no empire lasts forever. And we can make the peace we seek with our resistance and with our persistence. And so we have flooded this story with soft light that warms a drafty stable, and we've made heroes of those who listened to voices that came from the night sky, and we've honored a man who ignored his white male privilege that would have allowed him to stone his fiancée for unfaithfulness. And we've celebrated in this story the strength of a woman who birthed a child with courage in a cruel time. And we've cheered the fear that the birth of a peasant baby brought to a paranoid king. And we have celebrated the subversively good news that imperial power is always threatened by the birth of those who inspire a vision of a radical community of equality in place of a corrupt and soul-eroding empire. On this night, in the midst of all the possibilities that are deep within this story, we see the sanctity of the human in the holiness that's wrapped in every piece of flesh and every bit of bark and every sliver of stardust. This is a night when we dream the ancient dream that will reach through the darkness that separates us, and we'll see the holiness of our humanness. And the mystery and vulnerability of birth will refocus our love of life, and we'll open ourselves to the sky above us and to the earth beneath us and to all with whom we share this journey. For this night has the power to deepen our compassion, to broaden our love, to widen our hope, to heighten our capacity to imagine what is truly possible between us, not just on this night, but on every night. That this night has the power to remind us the holiness of our humanity, which no government, no policy, no lie, no leader has the power to take from us if we will honor the truth of our humanness with our resistance and our persistence. This night tells the story not so much about the birth of a particular human being as it tells the story about the journey of becoming human, a journey that asks us to mature and evolve as a species, a journey that invites us to stay awake to the goodness and the light that is within us. In gratitude for the safe passage of one family, and holding in our hearts the vulnerability of so many, we bring our prayers this Christmas night. We pray with one another. In the gentle light of stories that give us this night, we recognize there is much in our lives inviting us to ponder and to bend our knee in wonder. Illuminated by story and song, pregnant with possibility, we seek on this night of nights to set aside our shopping list of grievances, to let go of cynicism or resignation to the way things are, and dare to share what we have, do what we can, be the best of who we are. May we nourish our longing to birth the world of our dreams where no powerful nation will occupy another, where no government would unfairly tax the poor or uproot them, where no parent should experience desperation, where no door would be shut on those in need of shelter, that shepherds and sheep, Soldiers and shopkeepers would no longer need to be afraid. That fear and force wouldn't be found in the streets of Bethlehem or Berlin, Brussels or Paris, Istanbul or Islamabad, Aleppo or Nice, Standing Rock or Orlando. That wise ones would never cease to keep journeying to Washington and London and Moscow. That children would sleep safely and securely in beds, not in feed boxes. That we would open our ears to the songs of peace on earth, open our eyes to all that we've seen and heard, open our minds to know that some assembly is required for us to make the peace we seek. May we open ourselves to the love that waits to be born in us. We celebrate the humble and profound life of Jesus of Nazareth, the vulnerability of his birth, the values he lived, the vision he planted among a poor and oppressed people, a vision that lives on in his teachings. May we find wisdom in the stories of stars and stables this night. May we find it in our streets and in our shelters, in the eyes of family and friends and strangers. May we find the courage to cultivate the goodwill that can make the peace the world longs for. As those born of light and ever seeking it, we pray that it may be so. Amen.
As we share a Christmas tradition of lighting our candles, we recognize the meaning and the symbols of us passing a light from one to another in this space. We recognize that this is more than lighting this room. That when we come to light our candles and spread our light from one to the other, we are sharing our commitment to let the peace and the love that is born in all of us be shared and spread to the world, to those who need it, to those who are desperate for it. So as we begin here with these candles, sharing this light with each other, we're invited to pass it to our neighbor. And once again, we'll share just a few tips, and that is to keep all the lit candles upright and offer the upright candle to your neighbor and tip the unlit candle to the lit ones. We'll share and hold this light together as we sing a favorite carol to close our gathering this evening. And we sing of Silent Night as our silence invites light to be shared. Not one light, but many guide us on our way tonight.
Every flame of hope, every flame of love, every flame of forgiveness and peace.
Every effort to do good,
Every act of kindness and mercy and justice.
every breath,
Offers our burning light to the world.
and so may we go into this night with the radiance of love shining in each of us.
Born to shine with the light of 1,000 Christmas stars. Let us go with one another to be in peace and to live in peace, not only on this night, but every night.